Meeting called to order. Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Help me.
All right, attendance.
We have a problem.
Are
We just,
recording it?
Yeah, we are. That's good now. I don't know.
all right,
Eileen Bronco,
They have to unmute.
Eileen and Neil, you'd have
Yeah.
to mute out loud.
okay. Neil Mascola.
Yeah, I did.
Here. All right, we got you. Thank you. AJ Borges. Here. Tommy Kieran. Here. Kevin Brendan. Here. And Joe has. Here. All right, so, I will, accept the motion to approve the minutes from November 20th, 24 meeting.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Right, minutes. All set. Yeah, I have that. Yeah. All right, so, yeah, we're gonna go over what we, kind of the process that, we want to have happen tonight. So, first, we're gonna have the applicant, will make a presentation first. And, Ty and Bond, our third-party reviewer, will present their comments and questions to the applicant. Commissioners, you'll be able to, ask questions at any time, in the process. Public comment will be first limited to 3 minutes so that, all can make their comments. But obviously, it doesn't look like there's that many people here or online. Public comment from abutters who are in person and were notified by mail directly, who are located at least 200 feet from the project parcel, will be heard first. Public comment from people on Zoom will be heard after the town residents going first. The people on Zoom need to put their name and address in the chat box before we're going to allow you to talk. Once all the public has made its initial comment, I will allow additional time for any person to speak. All public comments and questions shall be directed to the chair and not to the applicant. All public comments should be addressed the special permit application and requirements. And then the meeting is being presented via Zoom as a convenience, and any technical issues arising via Zoom will not stop the hearing and the meeting from moving forward. So we're good, 6:05.
Yep.
So I'm gonna open the meeting. It's 6:05, Wednesday, December 11th. Open the hearing.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Tom Cody. I'm an attorney at the firm of Robinson and Cole. Our office is in Hartford, and I am here on behalf of the applicant, BNG Waterbury LLC and Blue Water Property Group. We have a PowerPoint presentation, which we'll get into in just a minute. But before we get going with our presentation, I just wanted to submit a couple of items for housekeeping. Pursuant to the regulations, we did send a certified mail notice to all of the owners of property within 200 feet of the property, and I previously sent those materials to Mr. Carter. We have received 27 green card receipts, and I'd like to submit copies of the cards that have been received to date.
Okay.
posted three signs at the perimeter of the property, two on Sheridan and one at the end of Great Hill Road. And the signs included the date, the time, and the location of tonight's public hearing. And we took a few photos of those, and I wanted to submit this documentation of the notice signs that were posted. I have a number of people that will be speaking this evening. I'd like to first introduce Christina Bernardin. She's the Vice President with Blue Water Property Group, and she'll get us going. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, Commissioners, staff of Norfolk Bug. Thank you for having us here. My name is Christina Bernardin. I'm the Vice President with Blue Water Property Group. Excited to present our project with you this evening. With me is our project team. So we heard from Tom Cody with Robinson & Cole. We also do have Tim Ongerko with Lincoln Engineering and Mueller with Altergard Acoustical Consultants. Chris McLean with Langdon Engineering as well. And Jeremy Van Minsel with CSO, our architect. Move them now. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, Blue Water Property Group, we're an industrial developer. We are based out of New York and Pennsylvania. We work closely with Amazon. This facility would be an Amazon facility that we're bringing to you today, so they are noted as a tenant. You have a select group from our consultant team here to present, but the team is, much larger, who's working on the project behind the scenes. This is a bird's eye rendering of the site. We do have additional bird's eye renderings that I would close this presentation with, and I can walk you through it. The facility is a little hard to see on this, but it's a retail distribution center, e-commerce retail distribution center. It's known to be the first mall distribution center in Amazon's warehouse. So typically what it's used for is deep storage of goods. So goods, vendors and our sellers, will store it on levels 2 to 5. And there's also automatic robotic systems as well that helps with the picking of these goods. And then it goes down to level 1 where it's used to pack and then to ship. So just to note, all goods that come from this distribution facility will go to another distribution facility that will then deliver goods directly to consumers. The operations operate on a 24/7 basis, 365 days a year. And the building that we're proposing today is going to be an all-electric building. So we've already started the process with Eversource on meeting the electrical demand for the site and understanding what improvements are needed. In terms of project benefits, buildings of this scale are typically assessed at over $150 million. For this site, we're assessing we're estimating the value to be over $200 million, which would obviously go to both Waterbury and Naugatuck and increase the tax basis. There are a lot of permanent jobs that come with this building. We're estimating between 500 and 1,000 permanent jobs. And that's because, most of the peaking that happens on the higher levels or employees working, to get that stuff done. Also during the construction schedule, which is between, 24 to 30 months is our preliminary estimate is, will bring about 300, jobs throughout that duration. Additional project benefits include, some of our offsite improvements, which we'll talk you guys through today as well. So as a site overview, just to orient you all to the location of the site, this is a zoomed out view of both Waterbury and Naugatuck. So the area that's highlighted in purple in the north is the limits of Waterbury, and to the south is Naugatuck. Our project is directly in the center and spans both municipalities. It's highlighted in yellow in the middle. And this is a going, zoomed in view of its location. So there are multiple parcels that comprise of this project and this development. The parcels in yellow, so it's the main parcel to the north. And then to the east, there are 2 parcels within Naugatuck, also noted in yellow text, are the parcels that will be purchased, and where most of the building, will sit. The parcel in orange, that's just to the west between the division of Waterbury and Naugatuck, just south of that. That parcel is owned by Waterbury. It's located in Naugatuck. And in the purchase and sale agreement, that parcel will provide easement and access to the main site. And the last parcel, it's with blue text, just south of the parcel I was mentioning. That parcel is owned currently by Amazon and will also help facilitate access to the main lot. This provides some history this project. So both Waterbury and Naugatuck wanted to use the site that they own to spur and encourage economic development. The topography of the site is very challenging. It ranges about 300 feet in elevation. So access from South Main Street is basically rendered infeasible for the site. They came together and they purchased that 10-acre lot that sits at the foot of Great Hill Road. And that helped provide access to the site. So that one location is what we're using as the main truck entrance and exit for the site. And then the other parcels where we're having easements and are purchased by Amazon will also provide access for employees and trucks on a somewhat infrequent basis. I do want to note consistency with the plan of conservation and development. Again, the goal is to encourage economic growth and foster new job opportunities and job creation, which we're doing with full-time employment as well as construction jobs for the site. Also, a specific goal and strategy is to recruit new businesses, which we will be doing with having Amazon as a tenant here. Also, the land use section in the plan of conservation and development states that specific reference to the Waterbury and Naugatuck Industrial Park, which the site is located in, and reference to the site as potential Amazon distribution facility. One other note is consistency with our zoning regulations. In 2022, a couple of years ago, we worked with both, the city of Waterbury and the borough of Naugatuck to go through zone text amendment changes that would allow for this development that was approved. So those changes also kind of have paved the way over the past couple of years for what we're presenting to you today. I'll pass it on to Jericho.
Good evening, Tim Underhill, professional engineer with Langen. I'll take you through a couple of the site features, the site plan, stormwater management, and then talk a little bit about soil erosion sediment control, as well as site lighting and just touch on some of the landscaping that's included in the plan set that was submitted for review. We'll start with the building itself, which sits here, about 2/3 of the building located in Waterbury. This is the city borough line that crosses the page. 2/3 of the building sits in Waterbury, about 1/3 sits in Naugatuck. The footprint of the building is 650,000 square feet. We have loading docks on the south side and on the east side, and a trailer and truck court that wraps the building on 3 sides on the south, east, and north end. Access to the truck court and to the loading docks is via this entrance here, and just at the bottom of the page here is the existing cul-de-sac at Great Hill Road, and Pennsylvania Steel existing facility lives here under the cursor and the red light. To the west of the building, and to the left, we have 2 different parking areas. We have an at-grade surface parking lot of about 600 parking spaces, and we have a 2-level parking deck of about 400 spaces, so just around 1,000 total parking spaces. And the old line that you see that wraps the perimeter of the truck court, as well as this driveway on the west side, those are retaining walls to help us elevate the site and work with the existing topography that's out there that Christina mentioned, which has been one of the challenges of developing this site in the past. Those retaining walls do a couple of things. One, allow us to raise the site to work from a grading, driveway, and building footprint standpoint, but they also help lessen the development footprint and impact to the site. Without those walls, we would end up with additional clearing, additional slope construction to essentially what we call chase grade downhill to eliminate the retaining walls. So the retaining walls do provide us the ability to try and keep the footprint of the development as tight as possible. We have a number of wetlands on site. There are wetland bodies in the northwest corner, central west corner, as well as the southwestern corner. And then there's a large wetland body along the eastern side of the site. The project has received approval from the boroughs and the Wetland Commission, as well as the City of Waterbury's Wetland Commission. And that included extensive review of the site design, stormwater management system, as well as the soil erosion and sediment control.
Tim, just to let you know, we'll be moving the cursor because our
Zoom
two
can't see my
commissioners-
laser. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll try and follow you.
I'll follow you.
Or you follow me. So as we continue to move from east to west, we have this roadway here, which is the site driveway that would be used by employees or associates. That connects to Sheridan. Sheridan, if you head west, heads down the hill and intersects with South Main Street here at an existing signalized intersection. Chris McLean from my office will take you through some of the traffic improvements, but that intersection will be improved. It's under state control and state review. It will receive new mast arms, new traffic signals, new lane configurations, new curbing, new striping, a complete rebuild to improve it over the existing conditions. And we have a couple of other spots in the project vicinity that also receive some improvements to the roadway network. Again, retaining walls are around the outside, internal landscaped islands are planted, and then to manage stormwater, which was a big focus of the inland wetland process. We will go to the next slides here. So we prepared this little color-coded figure, which highlights, and I understand it's hard to see at this scale, but if you look at the detailed drawings, you'll see that we have a number of features that both treat stormwater quantity and the rate at which it leaves the site, as well as the quality of that stormwater. We do discharge to wetlands. We're sensitive to what that water looks like when it leaves the site. And at least in my experience, we're also a guinea pig to new stormwater manual that was issued by Connecticut Deep in March of this year. probably the first project of this scale that will require compliance with that, and has dictated a number of improvements, probably above and beyond what you've seen in other development projects. So we have things like hydrodynamic separators, which you might be used to, or vortex units that spin the water. We have underground chambers that capture and attenuate the flow, but we also have a filter system that actually filters the first inch of runoff prior to discharge off-site, and that allows us to do phosphorus and nitrogen treatment that are requirements in the new stormwater manual. So a significant, what we would call treatment train for stormwater, some photos of what those components look like. Top left photo is the underground chambers that we use to capture the runoff from the roof and the pavement and allow us to meter it off to mimic existing hydraulic conditions. The photo to the right of that is what these filters look like. These are whole house filters that you may have, but at an industrial scale. They live within a vault and provide filtration of the water prior to discharge. The lower left-hand photo is one of a representative photo of what the basin would look like after the water is retained in the structures, after it's filtered through the filter system. We then would discharge to a pond, and then that pond provides some final finishing and cleaning. They would be a meadow type finish like the photo here. And then the last step would be a controlled discharge through a pipe and a riprap, take the velocity out of the water and allow it to head back to the adjacent wetland bodies and offsite locations. Soil erosion and sediment control is important for a project of this scale, and it was something we spent considerable time on during the inland wetland process. As part of the site plan application, we have a 3-phased approach to the soil erosion and sediment control. We show how soil erosion and sediment control starts essentially on day 1 as site clearing begins. We have a phase that shows what soil erosion and sediment control will look like as retaining walls are built, as subgrade is being prepped. And then we have a 3rd phase of soil erosion and sediment control, which shows what would be used and implemented as we head towards final paving. Catch basins may be installed, underground systems exist, basins have been installed and need to be protected. And that has been reviewed by your 3rd-party peer reviewer. It is subject to Connecticut DEEP permit application because of the scale of the project. So we will file a general permit with DEEP to have registration under their general permit. And also because of the scale of the project, we have to retain a 3rd party, independent of Langen, independent of Ty and Bond, that had no involvement in the design of the project, to do another round of peer review for our soil erosion and sediment control measures. And then they must attest to DEEP that they've reviewed the plans and materials and that it's in conformance with soil erosion and sediment control guidelines the state has issued. In addition to that, during construction, that general permit requires weekly inspection as well as inspection after significant rainfalls. And as part of the wetland approval process in Waterbury, they have also identified an independent party to represent the city to also do periodic inspections to make sure that the construction team is staying within the bounds of the permit. So lots of eyes on ongoing soil erosion and sediment control, and in addition to oversight from the state. Next up is site lighting. We have a full photometric and detailed plan in the site plan submission. The highlights here are the darker blue and green are lower levels. The light green is a middle level, and then yellow and red are kind of the brightest. The 2 bright spots of red and orange are at the guard shacks that control the entry of inbound and outbound trucks. As you move away to the perimeter of the access drive off of Great Hill, as well as the driveway off of Sheridan, those light levels drop, the light pole heights drop, and we end up with a scenario where we have 0 light spillage through the use of LED fixtures, full cutoff, that don't spill light off of the property line while illuminating the on-site features for vehicle and pedestrian safety. In addition to the site lighting, also prepared by our landscape architecture team, there is a planting plan which identifies the installation of new trees, shrubs, as well as ground cover that would be done to restore areas that are disturbed, as well as how we would plant the stormwater management basins. That is also supplemented by some wetland mitigation work that was proposed and included in our wetland applications to the borough and city, where we do some enhancement of areas that we don't disturb as part of the site work, but include some invasive species that exist within the buffer area surrounding the sites. So as part of our permits in both borough and the city, we have additional work, which I guess you could consider landscaping, that looks to remove invasives, plant native species to help box those out, and includes a monitoring program to make sure they're sustainable. Oh, you're right. I'm sorry. I went too far on the, I was on a roll. There we go.
Great. Thank you again, Tom Cody. I wanted to point out for a moment, we submitted a letter this morning seeking an interpretation from the commission regarding one point in the zoning regulations, which really came out of the discussion that we had had with Ty and Bond and the town staff as we went through the site plan. The question was asked about a retaining wall, and the retaining wall in question is at the southern end. Down at the very southern end here, as the entrance drive, this private drive comes down to intersect with Sheridan, running along the length of that drive is the retaining wall. The retaining wall is in part supporting the drive as it reaches Sheridan. And that retaining wall crosses this property line here. And it also crosses very slightly here, this property line here. This is the parcel owned by Amazon. This is the parcel owned by the city of Waterbury. And the question was whether this retaining wall, which was really part of the private drive, whether that retaining wall would be considered a structure that would have to have a setback from the property line. And we certainly didn't think that the regulations were intended to require that, because it would be somewhat illogical. But we thought it's not for us to decide, so we put that question to you in a letter, which we've submitted, and we're going to ask for your interpretation that for the purposes of a retaining wall in a situation like this, it would not require a side or a rear property line setback, as if it were some other form of a building. So I believe this will come up again for your agenda at the next meeting when the public hearing is continued, and we'd be happy to talk further about it and explain it further if that would be helpful. So right now, I will just submit for the record a copy of a letter that we submitted this morning, dated today, December 11th, regarding this question. Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair, Attorney Fitzpatrick did contact me about this and suggested that we put it on the zoning agenda for December 18th, that we will discuss it prior to us starting anything else. All right, so I will have that out to you with your packet after this meeting. And it will be on the agenda for next Wednesday.
Now we'll have Ben Muller discuss the acoustics.
Good evening, Ben Muller. I'm principal of Ostergaard Acoustical Associates. We're based in New Jersey. We're brought into the project, and variety of projects for that matter, to not only assist with evaluation of potential future emissions as a result of development, but also to evaluate our ability to comply with codes, as well as what mitigation measures might be needed in order to support meeting those goals. To do so, we kind of break it into multiple stages, but we did a sound survey of the missing area. Whether there are codes or not, understanding the existing environment is a practical matter as the start of a sound study. We developed a acoustical model. So much like old models that we've heard previously, we had a lighting model that was there before, and we have a stormwater model that gets done. We look at a three-dimensional model to evaluate the propagation and reflection and thereof of sound as it travels off site. And then mitigation measures are developed along the way in order to achieve the project goals and or code compliance. There are a variety of noise regulations that are in place. We've submitted a full study as part of the package, so I don't want to get too deep in the weeds. But essentially, on the state level, there's a very robust ordinance, and it gives a lot of details about how there's different kinds of sounds. We're faced with steady stationary noise sources that don't move, as well as motor vehicles that are not only mobile, but they're also dynamic and intermittent. And we have associated regulations with those. On the local level, we see that on the Waterbury side, they follow more or less the same approach as the state. And then on the Naugatuck side, the approach is more of a nuisance ordinance. So it says don't be disruptive. And we use not only the ambient survey, but as also the limits provided by the state and that Waterbury adopted to help us and assist with determination of whether or not there's a disturbance. So we set our project goal for the project it's gonna be 24-hour operation to, we set a nighttime criteria as our primary objective, and we set that to be 51 dBA offsite at residential receptors. Just a little background on the ambient survey. So a big portion of the approach here would be to go and establish sound, current sound in areas that are of interest. So to our north, east, and south, we have established pockets of residential neighborhoods that are represented on the figure here in locations 1 to the north, 2 to the east, and 3 to the south. We have an additional location here 4 that's further south, as there is another pocket of residences that's off page here. But we deploy these over the course of a week's period. The data were acquired in April earlier this year, and we get a tremendous amount of data. So not only are there the highs and lows, but now we have multiple days. We end up with a week of data. Every minute the monitor is logging data, and so I have a million points of data to look through. So the details are not of importance, it's more of the statistics, it's more of the trends that are going to be of interest, especially when looking at how our project, which is also going to be dynamic in nature, is going to mesh in with this. So an overall view of the survey results showed that we had levels that varied anywhere from 39 in the middle of the night, usually 2 a.m. is when we might hit that low, all the way up to a max of 70, which would be an occurrence for any type of local or a local vehicle pass by through the streets, or passing over aircraft, events like that would result in those intermittent higher levels. But the big picture here is that the average level across the entire survey duration, and even across the agreement across locations 1, 2, and 3 as well, since our primary noise generator is Route 8 from the west, that's going to keep be a heavy presence in the area. But we saw that the average levels were around 50. And so to me, that provides great alignment with what we're looking at as a directive from the state and from the Waterbury Code of our target goal of 50. So if we design the site to that have maximum levels of 51, that's going to blend in very well with an average level, existing average levels of 50. I'm going to just show our models, our results of it, but to give you the background of what we're going to look at in the next couple of slides. Our first step is looking at the stationary noise sources. That's going to be the mechanical equipment. We have over 60 different units that are large enough size to be of interest for a sound study. There's also dozens of smaller ones, but when you get so small, you end up not even able to contribute to greater picture. So there's no so eventually it's small, there's no cumulative effect of it. So we look at the big guys, 60 of them, distributed across the building. We also are considering, parapets, which are gonna be around the building. So those parapets not only screen visually, but also acoustically. So those are gonna be big components of our HVAC analysis. Getting onto the truck activity, we know that trucks are gonna be coming and going on site. Those are significant contributors of noise. There's no denying that a truck is a high level noise source. We see activity within the truck court to range anywhere from 70 to 79, depending on whether the truck is idling or driving, or some of our bigger culprits of high level sounds would be backup alarms, coupling decoupling, which is when trailers connect and disconnect, and also air brake release. There's, given the variety of there, you can see from the slide here where we point out that idling trucks are down at 62 dBA at 50 feet. So that's significantly higher, on the order of 10 or 15 dB lower in level than some of these high level events. So what happens in that situation is that they're so low in magnitude that they don't influence the cumulative effect off-site. So for a noise study, we traditionally don't look at idling trucks as a contributor of noise. We understand that there are also regulations limiting their duration, but the focus is to see our maximum emissions and have those comply with our project goals. To help with compliance with those project goals too, we've designed a 12-foot tall sound barrier around the entirety of the truck court. So that's going to be shown in light blue in the following figures. So it's going to be on the north, east, and the southeast side of the truck court. And then we even further went to find the need to extend presence of some screening as we traverse off-site into the cul-de-sac of Great Hill Road. What you'll see when we look at the sound model is we're responsible per code to control on-site sound emissions. Once all motor vehicles are on public roadways, they follow federal and state regulations, but those are not really designed for evaluation of acoustical impact. It's supposed to have a muffler and be in working order. But what we notice that is where our exit and entrance is on Great Hill Road, that where the cul-de-sac is, that there is still some line of sight to the neighboring residential neighborhood. And so we're proposing to extend that on-site sound wall off-site to help with that. And we're going to see that in pink in the next slide. Despite the large screen, everything still looks small to me here, but essentially what we're looking at is a color contour map of sound levels projected from the HVAC stationary equipment. So in the bottom right corner, we have our legend, and we have, much like the lighting plan with it being related to its intensity. So our blues and purples are going to be high level. Those are going to be 80 dB range. The nighttime goal that we're focusing on, the 51, that's represented by the gray contour, which for this HVAC plan, we don't see really present on site anywhere. And then you see the levels fall off further into the 40s and start to go into 30s as we get off site. We have results in the mid 40s at most of the vantage points, the residential vantage points around the property, which fully complies with the project goal and the state ordinance. Not much else to say about EPC other than this is the presence that's 24/7. So in the absence of truck activity, this is where we fall down to. Question?
Yeah, could you give some examples? You're saying 40, 50, 60. Could you give examples of what that sound is?
Sure. So I can in terms of magnitude, but when I didn't go over it, but the daytime limit is 61. 61 is these numbers aren't picked out of thin air, although they can vary a little bit per jurisdiction. But something in that mid 60 range would be two people speaking at 3 feet, would be about 65. And so having a daytime goal of having external noise not exceed that would be so that we wouldn't have to elevate our voices to have a discussion. That's what the daytime is there to prevent. For nighttime, we're looking at a limit of 51. I use the example that if you're in your kitchen 3 feet away from your refrigerator, that sound that you hear is about 50. So that's the magnitude that we're talking about here. Obviously, the sources associated here, HVAC for what we're looking at here would have a similar context to your refrigerator, compressor, and fan running. But we have other activities on site, such as your back alarms, and they all have different signatures. So what I'm talking about is the magnitude. We start to worry less about whether there's, we know the back alarms have a tonal component, but if that is designed to be low enough in magnitude, the annoyance factor is diminished. So that's the approach of the noise code is get everything to be low enough so that it's more readily blends in with the area, and the further away it gets, more difficult to discern.
Thank you.
Okay, so also here I should point out that you can see now the light blue or the cyan, we have our sound barrier, the 12-foot sound barrier that travels around the entirety of the site. And then down at the cul-de-sac at Great Hill Road, there it turns into pink, which is the 8-foot tall sound fence. We could also see in here that the parapets are shown, but they're less interesting to discuss. They're just parapets. Okay, of more interest would be our truck activity. Now we know the trucks are coming, going through the day, but what we have to recognize is that they are indeed dynamic. So trucks go and come, and much like we're gonna hear after me, we'll talk about traffic, but we follow a lot of the same premise and actually use a lot of the same data. So we know that over the course of an hour, we might expect X number of vehicles. Well, they don't all show up at 9:01 and you know, or leave at 9:59. They're distributed across that time. And so one of the challenges we have from a noise point of view is how do we represent that time factor, right? I already have a three-dimensional model, but I almost need my fourth dimension of time in order to be able to press play and show you how these will interact and move across the site. So what we opt to do, with that being too difficult to present and to calculate, is we find the places of closest proximity, right? We find where those sources will have their maximum level that will occur to the receptors off site, and we put those into the model. We also look at a variety of combinations of different events to make sure that we're covering our bases. The goal here is to make sure that we think of all different scenarios so that we are assured of the outcome. But what we see here is several trucks circulating the property at the same time. They're all represented by pink pluses, and per the slide before, we're modeling them at 74 and 50 feet. So again, this is a high level noise source. And you can see that represented by the oranges and reds that are within the site, but the perimeter wall that's proposed significantly reduces those levels. So those reds and oranges are confined within the truck court, and that when you get off site, they're reduced down into the yellow and gray. And you can see that at the highest levels, the receptors are at H and G, which are on the north here, and that those are showing levels of 50-51, which is just right at our project goal. But that is due to the modeling of this truck, which is at the secondary guardhouse, and that a sound barrier is shown to not be needed there. So that is what is really driving contributions there. So we heard before a discussion that secondary access is it's not the primary. It's not going to see the bulk of the use. Maybe it gets used in the busy season, or if there's a need to route trucks around there, but it's not going to be every truck coming through is not going to pass through there. And so this occurrence, even though we're showing it as acceptable, is not expected to be a common occurrence. We also looked at some other things within the sound report. If you take a look there, we do focus on other aspects, including those backup alarms and other higher levels as well, to show that throughout the site that those instances would also readily meet the project goal. So just a summary, we were able to look at our steady contribution of HVC, right? The presence there is going to be anywhere in the 40 range, low 40 range. That's well below the average. And in fact, it's more aligned with some of the lows. We showed that during the 7-day ambient survey that the lowest level measured was 39. That only occurred for an hour period on a day or two. So that's not the bulk of what the area is made up of. But having HVAC be down around that area really shows how that's going to blend in with the environment and not be disruptive. Now, on the other hand, the truck operations, we show that the activity on site, as dynamic as it would be, but we could have a considerable amount of activity on site and then cumulatively still meet our project goals. Those will be in motion, so trucks come, trucks go, there'll be lulls, then there'll be the activity and kind of back and forth on that scale. We showed that those apply with project goals as well. Essentially, or in summary, the project is able to show that we meet our project goal, which is aligned with the existing ambient, which is prudent because that means we're not gonna have a negative impact. And then that also aligns with what we have established as, not only the local or Waterbury and state code limits, but what we've also adopted as our, project goal for trucks, even though they're, not as regulated in the same way as stationary resources. And so all of the above help support that this project is, gonna be a good additive to the area and not result in any negative impact, and that the site is well designed to allow that to occur. Now to traffic. Question? Yep.
I just have a few questions. Number one, decibel is a unit of measure. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but decibel is for each decibel point that goes up. That's a doubling of the previous one number. So in other words, for example, if you go from, it's not a simple case of like on your radio where one click is 1 decibel. In reality, going from like 50 to 51 would actually be 51 would be double of 50.
It's challenging to think of it that way, because what happens is a lot of people also talk about loudness, it's twice as loud, and loudness has its own unit than decibels, but just know that the unit is decibels. I have an A at the end, referencing the A weighting, which is a frequencies across the spectrum are what they are, but our ears hear them a certain way, so that A weighted metric corrects that to be balanced there. So we're using the appropriate environmental metric. But it's a logarithmic scale. It's not linear. So if I have, let's say we have 2 compressors and they're each producing 50, and I'm standing 10 feet away from them, the resulting combination is to be 53, not 100. So when you see the 2 addition there, the most they change is 3, to give you a feel for how those relationships are to the human ear. Changes of 1 or 2 are going to be very difficult to discern, if at all. Changes of 3 will be just discernible for somebody with good hearing. Changes of 6 are going to be noticeable, and changes of 10 is where you see either a doubling or a halving of loudness. So there is that complications there because we're dealing with energy and how it gets added. But the idea is that adding many sources together eventually hits a saturation point and then no longer provides a change. Think best if you compare it to lights. The first light bulb is going to light up the room the most, and then the addition of other light bulbs is really going to just blend in with that and not have as large of an effect. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that you mentioned was based on your initial studies, for that 1 week time frame, the lowest decibel rating you reported was roughly around 2 AM to 39 decibels.
Yes.
During the presentation, you mentioned that the nighttime anticipation is 51 decibels. So will the people in that area be able to tell the difference between the 39, which, and I'm sure that, you know, at 1 AM is probably a little louder, at 3 AM is a little louder, but as far as that whole, are they going to be able to notice that difference at 2 AM? It was 39 and is now 51.
Sure. So the short answer is absolutely, right? We could experience lulls in the ambient and highs at the site. And so those will be opportunities for greater audibility. But we also know that that's not the norm, and that's because of the variability in the ambient. So while that situation could occur, without the site in place, the ambient levels currently show that it hits 39, and then 10 minutes later, it's 55 as a result of something else in the area. And so those presence of the presence of that dynamic noise existing today has not proven to result in widespread neighborhood wake-ups or sporadic complaints or any of the above. Everyone is used to how that variability exists. And so I'm not concerned when I look at an application like this that we might make a noise during the quietest time, provided that the quiet time isn't prevalent throughout the period. And some rural developments will go down to 39 and stay at 39. And so then, yes, the presence of a 50 could have a greater weight. But in this situation, I'm not concerned that it will at all. And then above all, though, we have to be assured, or I want to assure you, though, that those limits that are selected by the state and Waterbury 51, that's a low enough magnitude. Yes, 39 is an even lower magnitude, but going from 39 to 51 is nowhere near jarring or awakening or having a negative impact as it would if it were to be 80 or something significantly higher than that.
Okay, just, I was asking because you had mentioned that it's something doubles, you do hear it, this isn't doubling, but it's close. The other question I had was, we talked about spikes, the highs and the lows, and during the testing, was there like sustained noise levels and like, were you registered over the course of, I'm making this up, 20 minutes, where you had a sustained noise level during any of that time frame? Or was it always where, not minute, but within, every 5 to 7 minutes, there would be a fluctuation whether up or down?
Yeah, it's extremely dynamic, and the only time you would have that steady contribution is if there was a source more local to the monitor that was influencing. Let's say the neighbor's air conditioner unit kicked on, and that was the primary noise in the area. So then that influence at the microphone would show that it would kind of plateau a bit before it cycled off. But otherwise, the ambient and its totality is extremely dynamic. The birds chirp, the dogs bark, the aircraft passes over, car passes by, then nothing, right? And then that kind of rinse repeats as the day goes on and chaotic.
Thank you.
Before the gentleman starts with the traffic, I just want to make sure the commission remembers, last month, when we gave you the initial application, we did provide you with the noise study summary and the traffic summary. All right, the full reports are available online if you wanted to go back eventually and see them. Full reports, okay?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Chris McLean, professional engineer, Langen Engineering. Tim. So we put together the traffic study for the project here. So I will I'll quickly go through kind of the high levels of the study itself, and then at the end we'll get into some of our recommended improvements, give you some more information on that. So at a high level, our traffic study is the very basic of it is going out and collecting data in the existing conditions. So as part of that, we selected 18 intersections throughout Waterbury and Naugatuck. 8 of those intersections were in Naugatuck, 10 were in Waterbury, and that way we kind of cast a wide net around the site at some of the intersections that we think that employees are going to be using to get to the site, and then also some of the intersections that we think that trucks are going to be using to deliver goods to the site. So the while we looked at individual intersections, we did look at specific corridors of kind of intersections in a row that we thought were going to be important and kind of were a main way for employees and trucks to get to the site. So those kind of corridors in specific streets include Sheridan Drive, Great Hill Road, South Main Street. South Main Street, we looked all the way up to Washington Avenue in Waterbury, and as far south as the highway ramps at exit 27 now. We also looked at Route 68 as far east as Maple Hill Road, and then we looked at Union City Road as well. In Waterbury, we looked at the Pearl Lake Road corridor all the way out to Harpers Ferry Road. So we really cast a wide net at some of the intersections that we think would be seeing the most traffic associated with the site, and so that we could study the project impacts and determine if there was an impact related to traffic with the site. So I said that we looked at the study intersections. So the first step there is collecting traffic data. We went out and collected traffic data during the peak hours in the morning and the peak hours in the afternoon, which are typically the busiest hours of the day. And that's when people are going to work, people are going to go to school, and when there could be a shift change at this specific facility. So we looked at these peak hours in the morning and the afternoon, collect data during those times to determine kind of what the baseline conditions are there. Then the next step there is to project that traffic out into the future when the facility would be open in 2027. By doing that, we're increasing the traffic by a percentage each year out to 2027. That way we can kind of, assume that traffic is generally gonna increase over time. And that just kind of baseline throughout, most of Connecticut, it's generally traffic kind of rises over time. In addition to just kind of the generic traffic rising, we also looked at specific developments that were approved but not yet built. There were none in this specific area, but if there was any sort of traffic studies that were done for any approved facilities, we would then add them to the baseline traffic to get a good idea of what the traffic would be without this facility in development. And then we analyze that data. And then the next piece to do is to actually figure out how much traffic that this facility would be generating. There's a few ways to do that. The way that we did was we used the Institute of Traffic Engineering trip generation manual based on a facility of this type as a fulfillment center. They have data from a wide range of different other similar facilities throughout the United States, and they do a statistical analysis to provide you a number of amount of traffic kind of per square foot. And based on the square footage of this particular facility, we estimated the traffic related to this specific site. One thing to note is that we did not take any sort of credit for any sort of, mass transit or employees carpooling or anything. The ITE trip generation manual does allow you to take some sorts of credits if justified in order to reduce your estimated traffic there. Just to be conservative and to give a good idea of what the traffic would, may be, is we didn't take any sort of credit. That way, we really highlighted the traffic that could be coming from the site without really taking any credits, despite we maybe having some opportunity to do so. We chose not to do that to be conservative. And then lastly is we add the baseline traffic from 2027 to the traffic that we're estimating to be coming to and from the site. Then you get your build conditions. And what we did there is we analyzed the existing, the no build, and the build conditions to get that with the traffic volumes associated with all three of those conditions to compare the exact delta in terms of traffic queues, traffic delay between pre and post development. And that way you get a good idea exactly of what the impact specific to the development would be. And based on that, we conducted our traffic study, and we'll get to the results in a minute. So we do feel that the project is less impactful, specifically due to its proximity to Route 8. We feel that Route 8 is having a way for people to get to the site over on the highway and get off the site or get off the highway and pretty much only have less than a mile from the exit ramps to actually get to the front door if you're an employee, just over a mile if you're a truck. It is really assists in limiting the impact of this facility to the surrounding roadways. So what I mean by that is that there are going to be employees that are going to be living in Naugatuck, living in Waterbury, and they're going to be driving to this facility if they're employed here. And there's many ways to get here, but there are some people that live on the north side of Waterbury or the south side of Naugatuck that it may be quicker for them to get to the highway. So while we did study, a wide range of intersections, many people will opt to take the highway to get here. The Naugatuck River is kind of a natural barrier that prevents people from on the west side from getting there. Sometimes it might make more sense for them to get on the highway. So we feel that the proximity to the highway actually is a net benefit to this facility and limiting the amount of traffic directly resulting from the facility on the surrounding roadway network. And with that and the results of our study show that the existing roadway is capable of handling the added traffic from our site with a few notable improvements, which I'll get into in a minute. And then I just wanted to say that the traffic study has been reviewed by the state DOT, the Office of State Traffic Administration. They do review it because it is a large enough facility that warrants their review and approval. And then B, it is South Main Street and the highway off ramps are a state road, so it is under their jurisdiction to review. They have looked at our methodology and our traffic study, and they have reviewed it. We are still discussing with them the recommended improvements and the fine tuning of all of those. But that is currently under review and we're in it and is ongoing. Before I get into the recommended improvements, I just wanted to, I know I touched on employees traveling to the site, but I also wanted to give a little more information on truck access. So I did note that, trucks have a little over a mile to get to the site. Most, if not all, the trucks we're forecasting to be coming directly from Route 8. It is the quickest and easiest way to get to the truck entrance off Gray Hill Road is directly from the exit 27 ramps. Most of the deliveries or most of the trucks that are coming to the site are bringing products and goods that are going to be then sold, packaged, and then brought to a different facility for delivery. So the trucks that are coming in are full of just kind of raw goods or prepackaged goods, and then the trucks that are leaving are fulfillment boxes that are then going to another facility that would then deliver them. So trucks are going to be coming to the site and from the site in two different ways, or with two different purposes. But many of the trucks are going to be, or most of them are going to be coming directly from Route 8. And that's because the easiest and best way to get there is that way, because they're going to be coming from longer distances for goods coming to and from. So and you would get off the highway, get off exit 27, either coming north or south on Route 8. You would turn onto South Main Street, turn right onto Sheridan, go up the hill, take one left, and then you're once you're at the top of the hill, you're at the main truck driveway. It's a little over a mile. We're not forecasting any sort of trucks to be going through any residential neighborhoods. It'll all be limited to the Waterbury Naugatuck Industrial Park, which is purpose built for mostly trucks. And so the reverse is true. They'd be leaving, coming down the hill, turning onto Sheridan, and then one quick left, and then you're able to get onto either the Route 8 South or Route 8 North ramps, and then they can go to their end destination, whether they're bringing a truck back or going to deliver fulfilled packages to the next piece in the chain. So now we're going to get into the improvements. So here we have an aerial map, kind of highlighting 4 different intersections. On the left side, boxed in red, are some of the improvements on South Main Street and Waterbury Road, at the base of Sheridan, that are these are going to be under state jurisdiction and under state review. On the right side, you have one intersection that is the intersection of Sheridan and Gray Hill Road, which we are proposing some improvements for. This is locally approvable, not under state jurisdiction, but we're committed to making these improvements with the borough's review and approval. So specifically at the intersection of Gray Hill Road and Sheridan, we are proposing to widen this intersection to handle the additional trucks that are going to be coming to and from the site. Despite this intersection being in the industrial park, we have noticed that under existing conditions, there's rutting and curbs being banged up and landscaping being driven over by trucks that exist today. So what we're proposing is to widen this intersection to allow for the greater volume of trucks that will end up using this intersection, but also to accommodate some of the existing trucks that are out there today, and it seems like they can't make movement without driving over the curb and anything. I'll get into the details in a minute, but just to highlight we're going to really focus on the South Main Street and highway off ramps here. So this slide here is the intersection from the southbound Route 8 southbound off ramp. What we found in our study was that many of the employees coming to work are taking the left, and we don't want traffic backing up onto the highway. So what we're proposing here is to add a separate left turn lane. Right now, it's just one lane, you turn left and turn right from. We'd be adding a separate left turn lane, and that would allow for people that are, going to the facility or cars that are trying to turn right today, to be able to make their movement safely. In order to support that, there is a grass median that we'd end up having to shift to the north there. This intersection is obviously under state jurisdiction since it's the state highway. They're looking at it, but we're gonna be meeting all sorts of site distance related requirements, and make sure that this intersection can accommodate both passenger car and truck traffic. Moving just slightly south here, we have heard concerns from neighbors in the Platts Mill neighborhood community. We have heard concerns about existing truck traffic just to the south. I know that Platts Mill does kind of horseshoe around and come back to South Main Street in Waterbury. But it's the residents in Naugatuck that we've heard from have concerns about some of the existing truck traffic that's there today. I will state for the record that no Amazon trucks should be taking this road. There's simply no reason to. There's no way for them to get really anywhere that they need to go by taking this road up Platts Mill. But hearing from residents, we've heard that there's existing truck traffic that is either a nuisance or noisy or something of the sort. And so what we're proposing here is a no through truck sign to kind of alleviate an existing concern. We're already going to be going to the state of Connecticut DOT for their review and approval on pretty much everything else. And signage and the regulations around that would be something that we would commit to doing with the DOT's approval. So it's, we wouldn't be impacting it with our facility, but we would be trying to eliminate an existing concern. Now moving more north, this is the intersection of South Main Street and Sheridan Drive. This has the bulk, this intersection sees the bulk of the traffic related to the site. And to the left of the page is Route 8, and to the north, to the right is Waterbury, and down at the bottom would be Sheridan Drive as you kind of start coming up the hill there. As part of this intersection, as I said, it's going to be seeing the bulk of the traffic related to the project. So with that sees most of the impacts. We're proposing a complete intersection overhaul here. So we're planning on widening to accommodate additional turn lanes. So coming off the highway, if you're coming north, there will be a right turn lane. Down at the bottom of the page, there'll be a right turn lane to turn right down and come up Sheridan. And then coming from Waterbury, we're going to be widening to allow for a separate left turn lane to then turn up into Sheridan and go up towards the Amazon. And with that, we're going to essentially be holding the entire west side of South Main Street and widening up onto the hill on the east side towards the site. And this is going to require DOT's review and approval, but we feel confident that we can work with them to implement these changes. Additionally, on Sheridan Drive itself, we do have to widen to accommodate some of the existing road widths are a little narrow. And so with the added truck volume, we do want to widen these lanes, and that also requires shifting part of Sheridan Drive to the north a little bit to accommodate the additional width of the intersection. And as Tim mentioned before, along with all of these kind of pavement and signage improvements, we're also planning on completely replacing the traffic light there to accommodate all of these new lanes, all of this new signage and everything else. New mast arms, new safety equipment with the controller, allowing for a little bit longer red times and stuff like that. All up to current standards, DOT's review and approval. So we're really going to be bringing this intersection up to current safety standards. And lastly, I will just talk briefly about the Sheridan Drive and Great Hill Road.
Can you just go back to that last slide for a
Sure.
second? I just wanted to point out at other commission meetings, we've mentioned where the property line is between Waterbury and Naugatuck. just so people understand that Sheridan Drive is in Naugatuck, but there is the line there that shows where the property line is. So that's why it's Naugatuck that's looking at this, not Waterbury.
So, this intersection is very close to both municipalities, but it is in Naugatuck, which is why we're presenting this to you for your information. Like I said, ultimately, the DOT is gonna have their way with it, but we feel confident that with these improvements, we'll be able to accommodate the additional traffic related to this site. And then lastly, I touched on it briefly before at the intersection of Sheridan and Great Hill Road. We are proposing to widen at both the approaches and widen the intersection itself with new curb radii to accommodate the tractor trailers. From the bottom of the page, you are coming up Sheridan, up the hill, and across on the left and the right is Great Hill Road. So tractor trailers coming towards Amazon will be coming from the bottom of the page, turning left and then going off the left. Tractor trailers that are leaving are going to be coming from the left, turning right and going down Sheridan. And so we're planning on widening there to accommodate both of those movements simultaneously, both for safety and for added capacity. And then with that, I'll turn it over to Jeremy to talk briefly about.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
With regards to the Route 8 South exit, we mentioned installing, widening it, installing left turn mode, right? Is there any discussion about putting some type of gate there, considering the amount of figure? You said 24 hours a day, so it's 3 shifts. You're going to have 3 times a day when that ramp is going to be chock full, or whoever's coming south. Just curious about whether that meeting was considered, and if it was, how that decision was made.
Yeah, great question. So the short answer is yes, it was considered. The DOT and actually, the Connecticut DOT uses a federal manual called the MUTCD manual, and that MUTCD provides certain stipulations on volume of traffic that would warrant a traffic signal, and it would need to have high enough volume for up to 8 hours a day. And with we looked at the 8 hours, the busiest 8 hours at the highway off ramp, and it doesn't warrant a traffic signal. We did explore it. We did see if it would work. There's just simply not enough existing traffic along with the new traffic to warrant one. But with the stop sign down at the bottom of the ramp and the free flowing traffic, we do feel confident that with the extra lane there, it can accommodate all the extra traffic that's there, that we're forecasting along with the existing traffic that's there today without it backing up.
Also, before you go, previous other commission meetings, we discussed Union City Road going towards Waterbury from the intersection of Great Hill Road and Union City Road, that is already a no truck through zone.
Correct, yes.
Correct. So just letting people know on that. And in some of the meetings that we've had with the police chief and the deputy police chief, they're both in agreement of a no through truck for Platts Mills area also.
Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Jeremy Van Minsel. I'm with CESO, the architecture team on this project. I'm a senior project manager. Hopefully just real briefly on the architecture side here. Here's just a quick rendering of what the building is going to be. It's according to Naugatuck standards, it's about 106 feet tall, based on how the zoning in Naugatuck measures. The main components of the building, the lower couple floors are going to be precast concrete with the insulated metal panel surrounding certain areas to give it a little more detail.
Huh?
And then some storefront along the front edge there. The upper levels are all insulated metal panel with various colors. There is a lot of undulation in this building, so it does not look just a big box that a typical industrial looks like. And just some of the materials that we're using, the insulated metal panel, the storefront, and the precast concrete. And that's really why.
What do you mean by storefront? I mean, this isn't a public access building.
No, storefront curtain wall, it's just the typical glazing, like the,
Like a corporate.
yeah, corporate storefront.
Just one minute.
We have a couple, of views to show you as well, so. Also stuff.
Um,
Can you
I'll
text
do the
me?
next step, but I'm not sure who will go to. There is, so individual trucks will not be going to this facility, regular Amazon trucks, she going to people's houses. Is this strictly gonna be semis going in and out, nothing else?
Yes, correct, the Sprinter vans would not be coming to this facility.
So it's just this 18-wheelers going in, dropping off stuff, other 18-wheelers picking up stuff.
Yes, and employees, of course.
Yeah, and yes, of course.
Okay, so we have a few bird's eye view.
Sorry, I wrote them down and I
Okay.
don't want to get them. On the stormwater filtration, you mentioned the alignment with the current March 24 standards and including a new stormwater filtration system. I'm curious about the filtration system with regards to permanence, life cycle, things along like, is this something that's gotta be replaced? Like one in my kitchen every 3 to 4 months, or is it something that, you set it and forget it, what's?
Yeah, so as part of this, again, it's my professional engineer, Lang, the typical life cycle before real maintenance is about 5 years on these filter systems, so they are not like your Brita filter. There is some operations and maintenance in our stormwater management report that talks about, and as we come online and start to understand the loading, you check them after, say, 6 months, you check them after a year, but kind of from the manufacturer, typical actually pulling the filter and back flushing it is about once every 5 years. So probably the frequency that a hydrodynamic separator would see, those may need more frequent more frequent cleaning, but every 5 years is when someone would probably get around to it. So the filters do have kind of a longer, more robust lifespan before the kind of the first major maintenance. And if there is a clogging issue, we still have all the other components in line. The stormwater can still pass through. We don't create backup if the filters were clogged. We would still have a system that functions and protects downstream water lines.
Thank you. How the last one comes.
Okay, so just a few bird's eye view renderings of the facility. So this first one is a view from the northwest. This is from the Waterbury side looking south on the facility. So you can see the facility, you can see the truck court, you can see this is the 2-story parking garage as well. Okay, this is the next view. This is also from the Waterbury side. This is northeast, looking south. So you see the back side of the facility as well for the trailer parking as well. It's on the north portion of the site. Next one, this is from the east side, so would border Naugatuck and Waterbury, looking west. So you're again looking at most of the trailer, the loading docks, trailer parking of the facility, and then last two ones. this is from the Naugatuck side, southwest facing north. You can see the elevation of the building is lower than the elevation of the neighborhood. So you're actually going down into the site.
So that horseshoe shaped road on the left there is Marsh Hill Road. That's
Yes,
Marsh Hill
this is
Road.
Marsh Hill Road,
And
Michelle.
over on the right, that long straight one is Pondview,
correct.
Mhm.
Yes.
which are the two areas in Naugatuck.
This is our site coming in from the Great Hill Road cul-de-sac. And the parking. So here, this is Pennsylvania Steel. Okay, and this last view is southeast, Naugatuck side, looking north. So same thing. This is the main Comstock facility. You have Pennsylvania Steel over here, Ken Metal. This is part of the drive coming in from Great Hill Road. And the associated, trailer parking. And then I do have a couple of view impact studies too, and I'll just point to the two views that we have from the Naugatuck side. There are a couple of views here. So we have in the letters that show the different views that we're looking at. I'll focus on the ones on the Naugatuck side, so that's F and G. And the views looking at the facility from like a ground level, so like what you'll actually see on the roads.
You do have this in front of you. With the last 4 slides.
All right, this is points out where we're looking from this location. Again, this is from the southeast side facing northwest. Your view of the facility. So what we do here, take actual pictures. We go to these locations, you take a picture. Did it in the winter where the trees are not full, so it's kind of like the worst case condition of what you would actually see. And then Land Engineering would render the facility in the background using the actual location and height as we decided today. So this is the before, and then this is the after. You can see facility back there behind the trees. In the summer months, and when the leaves grow, this will be even more shielded. This is location G. This is Marsh Hill Road, again facing north. Your view of the facility shown in the next slides. We took the picture from the road at the ground, elevation. So if you're on the road, if you're walking there, entering your homes, this is what you would typically see beforehand, and then this is what you would see after. So the in the back, shielded from the homes, as I mentioned before, the elevation for Marsh Hill Road is higher than the full elevation of the the site, because we're grading down into it, so it's a little bit more hidden. Those are the last two views that I wanted to show. I will pull up the site plan, and then if you guys have any questions for us, we'll be open to answer those.
Are you done with your presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so.
So-
Time.
What do we have, Ty and Bond? Come up.
Good evening, members of the commission. My name is Andrew White, registered professional engineer in the state of Connecticut with Ty and Bond. With me tonight is Colleen Byrne, who's our transportation engineer, who also peer reviewed the project as part of my team. To go over our process and the comments that we have, we reviewed all the materials that were submitted to you. As Mr. Underko had mentioned earlier, the inland wetlands portion covered stormwater and soil erosion control that were extensively reviewed by us and went back and forth with the applicant team. So this review did not cover those, as they were all satisfactorily answered and incorporated into the project. So most of the comments that we had for the site design was compliance, not true compliance, but more of documenting compliance with the zoning regulations. As Attorney Cody had mentioned before, we had some interactive meetings with the applicant team. And the one issue that they had brought before you was that retaining wall. But most of our comments were clerical in nature of defining which were front yards, what are side yards, what are rear yards, where the setbacks are being applied, dimensional accuracy for what's on the plans and what's reported to you. So that was the majority of the comments. We also had a few clarifying questions for the applicant regarding the earth excavation permit, as well as have they proceeded to the fire marshal and police department, which I understand they have both completed at this time. And so that was really our overview of the zoning regulations for the project. The rest of the plan itself was in general conformance with your regulations. We did not provide specific comments on what we felt that they had addressed adequately. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Colleen to discuss her findings on traffic.
Good evening, Commission. Colleen Byrne with Ty and Bond. I was responsible for the traffic review. In general, the traffic study we reviewed was the part of the application, which was revised through October 2024. We also requested some additional materials from the applicant, which weren't part of the official study, and reviewed those as well. In general, the study was prepared in regards with standard engineering practices as well as industry standards. We did have a few clarifying comments in regards to some of the volumes and some of the detailed synchro analysis inputs, as well as one request to see some additional intersection site distance turning movements for the Sheridan Drive exit for the passenger vehicles. They did provide intersection site distance plans and profiles for the tractor trailer vehicles. We also just wanted to take a look at those passenger vehicles, since that's the primary driveway for that those vehicles coming out. Other than that, some clarifying points regarding reference to exit 29, which has now been renumbered to exit 27, as well as a couple of recommendations for considerations to for safety improvements at a couple high crash locations that were identified within the network. This is actually up in Waterbury, but there's one intersection that is operating fairly poorly at South Main Street and Washington Street. So we did highlight that in our comment letter. There are signal timing improvements being recommended at that location, and I believe the city is pursuing some improvements to realign that intersection. But the resultant operating conditions will be fairly poor in at capacity, even in the proposed condition with the signal timing improvements incorporated.
And that's the city of Waterbury.
That's Waterbury, yep. Other than that, we did look at existing pavement conditions as well, and did a desktop review of the pavement conditions on all the roadways within the city area network. There were 3 that we made a recommendation for consideration on potential improvements based on the existing conditions. So those were Sheridan Drive, Great Hill Road, and Bristol Street. That concludes the majority of our comments. We had a few on the on-site, a lot of use of speed humps that maybe could be, some other traffic calming measures could be considered, but just minor recommendations in general, for consideration in improving the site circulation
The speed humps you're referring to, are they in their,
in the park.
in their areas?
Yeah, not external to the site. So in general, minor comments, nothing that I think would impact the outcome of the results of the study. They're mitigating their impacts in terms of traffic operations. And as mentioned before, DOT is going to be reviewing the project as a major traffic generator through OSTA.
So just before you start, Mr. Chair, just to go through some of the housekeeping things that we do for our special permits. You did get the application. We do have a authorization and consent to land use application letter from both the Borough of Naugatuck and the Waterbury Development Corporation that was submitted by the applicant saying that they're, as we understand, you have a purchase to agreement to purchase the borough land. You've already purchased one parcel from somebody else, so they've contacted they basically can come in with this application before us. Couple of the other things I mentioned about both, you've received the sound study summary and the traffic study. We did send out to the town clerk in Waterbury public notice for this meeting. They've received it. We've got that back certified. We sent them the application and other various things associated with this. It's been noticed twice in the Waterbury Republican American the past 2 Fridays as required by state statute. A couple of the other things in regard to other commissions that we are required to have it go before. The Police Commission approved this application on November 19th. The Fire Commission did meet, I believe, on Monday night. I sent an email to the Fire Commissioner or to the Fire Marshal. Was it approved? Do you know? I believe it was. He did not respond yet to mine. The Planning Commission gave it a positive referral, and I will read their referral back in here. I should have that because they did have a couple of recommendations. So they, as you know, we send it to the Planning Commission for a referral. They send a positive referral to the Zoning Commission. They asked that the Zoning Commission examine the status of the roads in Naugatuck for the level of activity as noted in the discussion that was at the Planning Commission. And the issue of power supply remains open with the developer and should be addressed before any final approval, since it represents a potential liability to the borough. And they were asking about Eversource's ability to provide power to the facility. That's one of the things they are working with Eversource. They are required to make sure that all utilities can service them. But they just, one of the things the Planning Commission wanted to make as a recommendation to us. And as the roads, Ty and Bond did look at the roads, and I believe for the next meeting, Jim Stewart may have a letter in regard to the condition of the road. And we do know that the borough road that they are going to be impacting the most, Sheridan Drive, they're planning on doing some road work already, improvements on. Tax collector, all taxes are current. The engineering report has been done by Ty and Bond. Inland Wetlands did give this an approval for their application before them. I don't know if Lori, you want to make any comments in regard to that. One of the recommendations they had, I believe, was a dust control plan go on during any construction phase process for the wetlands area to be protected. But that they did do their approval on December 5th.
The only other recommendation to zoning that the wetlands made was that the applicant minimize light pollution or any potential impacts to the wetland habitat, which they went over the lighting plan tonight, and everything stays on property. Basically, that's it.
The final board would be the Water Pollution Control Board, which they are not meeting till tomorrow night. So after they meet, we will get their review for be able to go forward and move. That is what I have for the regular stuff that we have to provide. And I did get the green card things back as required with their 200 foot a buttering notice. But before commissioners ask any questions, there was mention of potential with the excavation. We didn't see any presentation tonight about excavation. So will you be doing something in the future in regard to that?
So we understand excavation is permitted as long as, it's remaining on site, and we intend the site to be a balanced site. We know any soil processing would require a special permit, so, we will, have to come back before you all with a special permit for any soil processing that we intend to do on site.
So your
That's
intent,
not included in this application.
okay, so your intention is to come back for the rock crushing, the processing of earth material as a special permit?
Yes, that is our intention.
Commissioners, do we have any questions?
Curiosity, to the time bond, regards to the road condition, that you review. There's more than a few here that are in poor condition. And is exhibiting cracking. Cracking in regular poor condition. There's no cracks, it's just worn out.
Yeah, so generally this was a desktop review, so we were looking at some imaging, but yes, we were focused on the roadways that the development would have the greatest impact on in terms of what they were adding additional traffic to. So those are the recommended areas that we proposed, so Great Hill Road, Sheridan Drive, and Bristol Street were based on the volume of traffic on the road in addition to the existing conditions.
And so there's a lot of others on here as well.
Correct.
Washington Street, Washington Ave.
Waterbury.
Recommendation to get all of these fixed, or is this just simply a state of condition?
It was simply a desktop review of the existing conditions, and then our recommendations were based on the additional traffic being added to the network.
Now,
Yeah, I have had
Washington
conversations
is
with the
Waterbury,
applicant regarding
Washington, Water.
and Bristol
Well,
Street is
regarding
Waterbury.
the two roads in Naugatuck, because that's obviously what we're concerned with.
I'm just curious from a general knowledge standpoint, not necessarily who's got to do what, but more of just understanding the report.
Well, the roads are in need of repaving, no doubt, and given the amount of construction that they're proposing, the amount of traffic they're proposing, I'm gonna be suggesting that they either mill and repave the roads, or they work with the borough and reimburse the borough for the cost. And I'm looking for a response, and hopefully we get that by the next meeting.
Considering all the equipment that's going to be moving on these poor condition roads and things along those lines, is there going to be any type of stipulation for that as well?
I mean, as long as the roads or the vehicles meet the DOT requirements, then I wouldn't be putting any additional requirements on them, no. I mean, imagine they're gonna be having to bring some overweight loads in because of what they're building, so.
You know, that's kind of what I was wondering, I mean, under standard construction, I could see that, but this is, a rather massive facility, very large equipment, and if the roads are in poor condition and already cracking, what are these massive pieces of equipment? I mean, I understand it's not like they're gonna be driving in and out all day long with these big things, they're gonna go in, stay, and then come out, theoretically. But I'm just curious as to how that play out.
Well, you know, what we're thinking about at this time is a mill and repave of the road. So it would be essentially good for another 15 to 20 years.
Eileen or Neil?
None, nothing for
No
me.
questions. No.
My questions were answered.
Nice presentation.
I have two questions here.
Well, they will go to the public. Most of those ones that we have come up with.
Very good.
You can open up to the public at this point.
I'm gonna open up to the public. Any people that are butters that live that are here that'd like to speak? Well, state your name and address.
There is a form for you to sign too, right?
Good evening, my name is Michelle Valenti, I'm from 16 Nina Drive in Naugatuck. So I did hear about the traffic report, but I didn't hear actually how much of a traffic will be. I actually live where, people may not be from the area, like 5 minutes away, actually live on the other side of Union City Road, which would be the other side of Industrial Park. But I wanted to know, how much actual traffic, will be in that area. That's one question. The other one would be maybe a comment. Coming from Route 8 coming from north going south, that turn that they're proposing to lengthen, which they probably need to, obviously. I'm wondering how they're gonna do that, because one side is literally residential, and I don't know with that curve. I had a cousin 20 years ago who actually got killed in that area. So that's a really very difficult turn to do. So that would be one comment. And I think that's it for now.
Are you referring to the exit coming off of Route 8? Which that would be under the state of Connecticut, not us.
I see. Okay. But is there any kind of preliminary information about how they're going to even do that? Because there's not like a lot of land even to do that, to make that 2-lane.
Isn't that
I believe they did show a diagram tonight showing how there's room to do the 2 lanes, and again, it would go before the state of Connecticut DOT to look at that.
But can anybody talk about in terms of how much traffic would actually be in that area? Not just turn, but just in general,
The applicant can respond after everyone's made their comment.
All right, thank you.
William Mallory, 9 Michelle Lane.
Mr. Mallory, before you speak, you did provide to us a letter that I did provide to the commission and to the applicant, but you're intending on going ahead and speaking?
I just have a couple of questions from that.
Okay, you're more than welcome to, so.
I haven't got a response back yet, so
Yeah, it was presented to them and to the commission so they would know it, and you're more than welcome to speak. Usually people provide stuff to us because they can't be here.
Okay.
So I just want, you're gonna be able to speak on your behalf.
Okay, Commissioner.
Yeah.
And Mr. Chairman, I appreciate you taking the time to hopefully review what I did send in. There's just a couple questions that have come up since then, and the one is with the Ty and Bond report and in reference to their questions about the zoning. And in their comments, twice it's mentioned a 3-story parking structure rather than the 2-story parking structure. And I just don't know if that makes a difference as far as whether it needs to be clarified before something is decided by you. The other thing is the air quality that I mentioned in my letter was just, to make it known that currently, I mean, we can see particles that seem to come from the waste factory in Waterbury. And I just want to know if there's ever going to be an air study done before this gets started to see if it has an effect and what their added construction and daily operation will do to the air quality for the residents that are right there. For those, I assume you know Naugatuck well enough to know that if you look at the Great Hill cul-de-sac, just to the right of that is where our property is located. We're right there at the entrance to that truck traffic that originally was supposed to be emergency entrance only. And so that is why we're here every time we go before any of the commissions. And the last question I have is, due to the dynamiting and all the stone crushing and all that stuff, from the sound standpoint, will there be a bond required in case there's any structural damages to the houses to make sure that there is finances available to cover those costs? Thank you.
So we did prepare questions in regard to excavation and blasting and whatnot tonight. But we did find out that their intention is to come back with a special permit request towards that. So we are not going to be asking those questions tonight because they will be asked at that special permit process. If you understand what we're saying with that. But we did have a detailed amount of questions for that, and I'm sure we will still have them for that at that point. In regard to the parking structure, the applicant, I believe it is a two-story structure, but it is located in the city of Waterbury, not in Naugatuck. So it might be something for them to talk with Waterbury about, but it wasn't be in Naugatuck's jurisdiction.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment?
Thank you. Hi, I'm Christine Smolkus from 82 Beardsley Avenue. I have 10 things I want to bring up, but they're short. Some of the things I did bring up to the project team last night at the question and answer session, so they'll sound familiar to you, but I did not get everything answered. Number one, in the site plan drawings and in the stormwater management report, it shows that portions of the site are flood hazard areas. And the shaded flood hazard areas are areas of moderate flood hazard. I'm curious to know, is development allowed in flood hazard areas, and how will construction affect the flood hazard areas? Number two, the summary of application says construction will shut down by 7 p.m., but that's against the ordinances of both Waterbury and Naugatuck, which prohibit construction past 6 p.m. Number three, the sound study disregards the residents that live to the west of the site. It says the trucks will take Route 8 and therefore not disturb any residents, but there are houses very close to the Route 8 southbound exit and to the Route 8 southbound entrance. There's Radnor Avenue, Willow, Beardsley. There's a whole neighborhood there, so they will be the folks that will be most affected by the trucks using Route 8. So I would ask that a sound barrier be considered for the neighborhood, or that the developer at least get the state to make that exit a no jake brake area, so trucks won't make that loud sound that they make when they use their jake brakes. Four, the traffic study also did not acknowledge the houses in that area. There was a Consumer Reports investigation about a similar Amazon warehouse in California that made cracks in residents' houses due to vibrations from trailer trucks coming by around the clock. And that can also happen here. But I welcome anyone to go to Willow or Beardsley and take a look and see how close the highway is and how those people will be affected. 5, Blue Water and Amazon have not made known how many employees or how many shifts there will be at the site. I've heard 500 to 1,000 employees, but that's a huge range. They must know how many they're planning for. And as for the number of shifts, I've heard 2 or 3. And it's important because the number of employees and the number of shifts make a big difference in how much traffic will be generated at each shift change. Number 6, Platts Mill Road from Waterbury Road to Bristol Street will be a main artery for employee traffic. It often has pedestrians and people walking their dogs. I wonder, can the neighborhood get a sidewalk there for safety? Number 7, the air quality will suffer from the loss of trees, from the construction process, and from the traffic. Pollution can travel for miles. And there are 12 schools within just 3 miles of this site. Some are in Waterbury, some are in Naugatuck. And Naugatuck regulations 33.2 say, quote, in evaluating a special permit, the zoning commission shall take into consideration the public health, safety, and welfare of the public, unquote. So what will be done to protect the public's health? The only thing I can think of is to not go ahead with the project or require it to be made smaller or to be relocated. Number 8, in the regulations, it also says the zoning commission needs to look at the location, size, and character of a proposed use to determine its effect on 3 things: harmony with development, traffic circulation, and impact on environment. This project doesn't seem to meet the requirements. It is too large to be harmonious with the other businesses in the industrial park. Its traffic will have a large impact and it will negatively affect the environment and the quality of life. Number 9, the Naugatuck Plan of Conservation and Development on page 18 says, quote, the natural resource constraints to development are those sensitive areas such as very steep slopes and wetlands that are not only unsuitable for development, but in addition to current preserved open spaces, should be preserved and protected from any development encroachment, unquote. And the location of this project seems to qualify for that. It has steep slopes and wetlands and shouldn't be developed. It probably never really was meant to be. Number 10, if the borough is careful to have controlled growth, that would benefit everyone. The project that's proposed here, combined with the development at the former Lanxess site, which would bring an additional 500 employees, plus more housing units that will be built downtown, has the potential to bring too many people too fast to the area. Thank you for your consideration.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to make a comment?
Good evening. My name is Steve Schreier. I live at 36 Buckland Street in Plantsville. However, I've lived in Waterbury in the Gilmartin neighborhood for 37 years, so I feel like I can say something about the impact of my old neighborhood. I'm interested in finding out whether there's going to be any kind of compensation for homeowners for trucks damaging water pipes in the middle of the road. I had neighbors when they redid the Gilmartin School in Waterbury on Wyoming Ave, and 3 of my neighbors had their water pipes destroyed by the construction trucks driving on the road. And so, given that there's going to be construction trucks that are going to be on roads in Naugatuck, it'd be interesting to know what accommodations are going to be made for people regarding that. The other question I have is, I asked this last time, how many trees are going to come down? You said it was in the
Not to ask the applicant.
Sir, you should direct directly to the,
I'd like to know how many trees are going to be coming down. That's my question.
We'll ask them.
Okay, thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to make a comment?
Allison Santerico, 9 Answer Phone. I don't have any technical questions or comments. And when I was first coming down here, I was thinking that I would be more like talking about Amazon itself, but there really shouldn't be anything put on land anywhere that requires destroying trees or anything at this point. And there shouldn't have been for a long time, but we are far behind on all of that kind of stuff, so there's no and even if, you know, as the land was whatever, the idea for the town is to put something there, but there shouldn't be anything there, and it's never too late to change course on things like that. I feel like I had other thoughts, but this is nerve-wracking for me. Yeah, there just shouldn't be anything there, and we should be doing everything that we can to conserve as much as we possibly can at this point. So I hope that you will listen to that.
Is there anyone else from the public that would like to comment? We'll open it up on Zoom, Lori.
I have two.
Is there, okay,
Well, I have two. First, I have two questions. Teamster Local 251, Patrick Leonard. Sorry. Teamster Local 251, Patrick Leonard, Teamster Local 251 in opposition. Then we have Rocky Vitale, 180 East Waterbury Road. Approaching the dead end of Great Hill Road, there is a gymnastics studio on the right. Many times attendees park on Great Hill Road, making it quite narrow, sometimes less than 1 lane. They also park in the cul-de-sac. Those were two of those, and I don't have anyone raising their hand otherwise. But I have one. Okay, Teamster Local 251, state your name and address.
Good evening. Thank you, Chairman Cool and members of the Naugatuck Zoning Commission. My name is Patrick Leonard. I'm here on behalf of Teamsters Local 251, which represents over 6,200 workers. Local 251 is a part of Teamsters Joint Council 10, which represents 45,000 Teamsters and 21 locals throughout Connecticut, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Maine. The Teamsters represent members and their families who work and live in or near Naugatuck and Waterbury, and who may be adversely affected by Blue Water's massive Amazon project. The Teamsters are committed to making sure that the logistics industry provides a decent quality of life for its workers, but also that it limits its negative impacts on the communities in which it operates. The applicant before you is Blue Water Property Group, but let's be clear that they are planning on building a facility for Amazon. In fact, Blue Water is proposing a massive project that would transform the region. An Amazon fulfillment center with up to 6 stories that will be open 24/7. If built, this would be one of the largest Amazon warehouses in the world. Blue Water's site plan and much of the press coverage notes that the building will have a footprint of only 600,000 square feet. However, it will be up to 6 stories, meaning that the actual total floor space will be between 3 million to 4 million square feet. Amazon has over 1,000 warehouses in the US, but the vast majority of them are only about 100,000 square feet. This could be more than 40 times as large. Supporters of the project have touted its potential benefits, tax revenues, and 500 to 1,000 new jobs. Despite this, you should consider the negative impacts that Amazon warehouses are known to have on host communities, their residents, and the environment. These impacts include more traffic, air pollution, light, and noise, which will be exacerbated by the project's size and the fact that it will be open 24/7. For example, Amazon warehouses typically have trucks bringing cargo between midnight and 6 a.m. This will undoubtedly disturb the nearby residents, many of which who house sensitive receptors. Residents have also noted that the rock blasting that will be required and how this, along with everything else, could hurt their home values as well as damage their foundations and potentially contaminate the wetlands. A project of this size will also impact road conditions and could strain public safety, emergency response, energy, and water resources. As residents noted in the Waterbury and Naugatuck Inland Wetlands Commission meetings that recently happened, this project will increase tree removal on virgin land, and runoff may create storm and flooding related problems. As a union representing logistics workers, we're also concerned with the type of jobs Amazon provides. First, we want to point out that this project might not create any net new jobs. A study of Amazon fulfillment centers conducted by the Economic Policy Institute found that when Amazon opens a new fulfillment center, the host county gains no new net jobs overall, as the jobs created in warehousing and storage are likely offset by job losses in other industries. Officials may also be disappointed in the quality of Amazon jobs. The Teamsters have talked with many Amazon workers and have heard of jobs with substandard pay, grueling workloads, and high turnover. Please consider the following. When Amazon opens a large facility in a county, the average compensation for warehouse workers declines more than 6% after 2 years. Pre-pandemic research found that warehouse workers in areas with an Amazon facility earned about 10% less than similar workers elsewhere. When Amazon moves into a county, turnover rates skyrocket in just 2 years. A new Amazon facility increases the turnover rate for warehousing and storage employees by an average of 30%.
Please keep your comments to the special permit application of zoning regulations, please.
Okay, well, I mean, that will really conclude my my comments as the footprint. You know, I do come as well from a new facility that was just built in Johnston, Rhode Island by Blue Water, which is 3.8 million square feet. And, you know, it's right on Route 6 or Hartford Ave. And the impact already, as they just opened less than a month ago, has been astronomical. And half of the trucks have still not even started to roll in, as well as they had an agreement with the community there to hire exclusively Johnston residents, which they did not hold true to. So I just wanted to make the commission aware of that as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Great comment. Anyone else from the public that wants to make a comment?
Okay. Sharon?
Hello.
Sharon?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sharon Samoska. I live on Pier Street in Waterbury, and I also lived in Naugatuck up in the Indian Hill area for several years. I have several concerns. For one, in terms of zoning and in terms of really delving into this project, do we have a reliable guarantee of some sort that since this is going to take 3 years or longer to complete, that Amazon will still want this in 3 to 5 years? And if not, what are we stuck with? When we're talking about the areas up there, I am concerned about flooding. I am concerned about soil erosion. And I'm wondering, as they spoke this evening, they said that the initial program or building up there is going to be monitored. But what happens when this building is finally built? Will there be continuing monitoring? Because erosion sometimes can take several years before you see it. Soil erosion is dangerous. And what are they going to do in terms of a disaster? This is a huge structure. If something happens up there, what is the impact and what are they doing to fortify that structure so that in effect a tornado is not going to destroy it? I'm going on from there. Please hold on a second. I think too, there's another concern that I have. I live just off of Platts Mill Road. I can see and hear Route 8 from my home. I can see and hear the train that goes through about every 4 hours all day and all night. They have cut down our buffers of trees. There is no sound fencing anywhere near Route 8 or on Platts Mill. And the noise that happens 24 hours a day already is significant. I heard at one of the meetings with Amazon that they claim that they have over 1,000 parking spaces, including cars and trucks. My concern is if we are seeing that amount of traffic every single day from over 1,000 parking spaces, what is that going to do to our area? When they do a study, are they considering for traffic the impact of even 100 cars or 200 cars? And cars coming through Platts Mill, which will be a very new noise for us because we normally don't hear or see a lot of traffic coming through here in the wee hours of the morning. But that is going to impact traffic in many ways. If they are doing a study right now that states that, well, an area doesn't need a stop sign, or it doesn't need a red light, or we don't need to protect the greenway path from tractor trailers and increased cars, is there going to be a consideration prior to all of this happening as to what is the impact of all of the extra vehicles? And so far, I have not heard, when the talks are here with Blue Water, the actual number of vehicles that they are anticipating per hour or per shift. In addition, if you have inclement weather, what's going to happen with safety on the roads? Right now, in this area of town, we don't always get plowed very fast because for Waterbury, and I'm sure for Naugatuck as well, we are the farthest out. How does that impact this? The sound issues obviously are a big concern to me. The pollution is also a big concern. We can take readings of pollutants in our air right here today, but when you start adding 500 trucks or 500 cars in a day when it's over 90 degrees and we have the humidity pattern sitting in, we have pollution coming from out of state, there is no way that this is not going to further impact this area. And I'm wondering why I don't see any reference to this. My other concern is the composition of the ledge. That ledge has previously been mentioned at, I believe, a couple of other instances where buildings were being proposed up there. And it was felt that the ledge was too much of a hindrance to build up there. What has changed to lead to that thinking right now? Is it any different? And what are they doing about the problem of shock waves? It's one thing to say you have a blast, but if that ledge extends way beyond where it is, I think that we need to have some information as to what the potential for damage from this kind of a blast carrying through rock ledge will do, not only to homes there, but to other places. And I agree that for heavy trucks and heavy traffic, the roads that we're talking about using, especially Platts Mill and Bristol Street, are not designed for heavy trucks. About 10 years ago, there was a company that wanted to move in on Bristol Street, and it was refused by zoning in Waterbury because they felt then that the roads would not support heavy, consistent truck traffic. That road really hasn't been changed a whole lot. It certainly hasn't been widened, and in the last area when we had flooding, parts of the side of that road actually washed away. So what are we doing with that? How are we looking at that? That, yes, that's Waterbury, but it also affects Naugatuck because Naugatuck people use this area. They said last night at a meeting that apparently they wanted to make part of Platts Mill Road a one-way area, but not all of it. And I'm concerned about that because if you have a large volume of traffic, and school buses now deliver children up to 5 p.m. at night, how is this burden of extra traffic going to affect the safety and the ability to get our children back and forth? Tinker School is not far away, and apparently neither are several other schools. So does zoning look at how close these trucks and this extra traffic can go to a school, what would need to be done when Tinker's school closes for the afternoon and they're waiting for parents and everyone else? You can't get down Highland Avenue at all. A truck would never fit through there. So what is the way that we need to look at this to say, okay, we've got some of the information from Blue Water, but do we have enough? And I'm not sure we do. And certainly living where I live, I've seen many, many accidents happening from people going down Bristol Street onto Platts Mill. There is now only one stop sign. When I moved in here 30 years ago, there were 3. And with time, they felt that the traffic did not merit those 2 stop signs on Platts Mill to still be there. And they took them away. I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about trucks coming down there and trying to make it's a sharp turn coming down Bristol Street to get onto Platts Mill. And that's also an issue that I have not heard addressed yet. And those are some of the things I'm concerned about. And for zoning, we know that over here, they had looked at some of these things when that one trash to energy plant wanted to move in, and traffic was a huge issue that prevented that from happening. So how has this changed, and will they be doing traffic studies once everybody moves in? Because isn't it too late then to prepare for the inevitable? Or at least to prepare.
Samoska, just to let you know that earlier tonight it was discussed that Platts Mills Road would be a no-through truck. And if your concerns are Bristol Street, that should be for Waterbury.
Okay.
Thank you.
You have any other comments?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
There's another one. Hold on. How do you? Teamster,
That's the same one from before.
I think he raised his hand again. Hold on, I have 5 questions. Rocky, I have a statement to read, please. He did that. Anonymous attendee.
No, we won't take.
I would just like to. Can you
Is
hear
that
me?
okay? Go ahead. State your
Oh.
name again, please.
Patrick Leonard,
address.
Teamsters Local 251. I would just like to also note for the record that the project that the applicant built in Johnson, Rhode Island was delayed for more than 2 years from its original completion date. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
No.
You guys want to address the questions now, or would you rather address them at next week's meeting? I'll leave it up to you.
We'll come next week with a formal presentation and answers to these questions. Thank you.
All right. Commissioners, you have any other questions?
Yeah, Sherman Drive, that's just for employees going in there, right? Or is that
Sheridan.
Employees and,
Sheridan.
or Sheridan Drive.
Now, hold on, I'm trying.
Both employees and trucks will be driving through Sheridan Drive. Employee access will be off of Sheridan Drive. The trucks will continue to Great Hill Road and then make a left into the entrance of the facility.
Okay, so they won't be going in there.
Yeah, the trucks will continue down to Great Hill Road.
That's Great Hill Road.
And enter into the eastern portion.
And I noticed you had bike racks up there. Will there be some accommodations for bikes going up the hill? Because I know they got them electric bikes and stuff now, but you're widening the road there, so I don't know if you made anything for that, or you're not going to just going to drive up the road. I don't know.
I think primarily it's going to be cars and buses. There are bus drop-offs. I can come back to you with an answer for the bikes.
And will there be tandem trucks going up there?
What do you mean by tandem
Well,
trucks?
2 of them, 2, 3, or whatever they do.
The double trailers.
Double trailers.
the one trailer behind the other. They're usually a little shorter.
Yeah, we'll confirm.
Okay. Uh, Building is 650,000 square feet, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's hard for me to visualize. You know the length and the width of the building?
Yeah, we'll look at the.
Get back to me on that. Oh, the lady, was there, she said, well, you showed a picture of the woods showing where the building's going and everything. Will you be putting some like pine trees in there or something too for a buffer?
I can, we should present, I'll pull the landscaping plan as well, in the next week, but there will be, plantings.
All right. That's it. Thanks.
One question. I know you have a plan to have the transit buses go up to your facility. Have you had conversations with them as of yet regarding this?
Yeah, we were waiting to get through the approval process, but yeah, with typical facilities like this, there are drop-offs, designed here at this location,
Amazon's never had a problem getting the buses to come up there?
not that I'm aware of.
Okay, what would be your plan if the bus company said, hey, we're not doing it, because they didn't want to go into our train station, they wanted to stay on the main road?
I can ask Amazon that answer, but it seemed like this is a typical request.
We had another-
They do
we had
have
another-
PDL for
We
it.
had another company in the industrial park who a lot of their employees take buses. And we ended up working with them to have to put in a bus shelter because they were out there in the rain and then the cold weather sitting there. And it's great if they can get the buses to drive up to the facility. It's just, you know, having them dropped off at the bottom of a long, steep graded road with no sidewalks is troublesome. But you guys know that as well as I do.
Since there's no other questions, I'm going to continue the public hearing till Wednesday, December 18th at 6:05. Be held here at the Board of Education conference room. I will make a motion to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks, everyone.